18, 19 is when like Mike Tyson was really blowing up, and is that when you even got more serious about it?
Yeah, and when Mike Tyson came in, I really got into studying Mike Tyson a lot. Yeah, and just the way he punched, and how sharp he was, and how accurate he was, especially at that time. Yeah, there was nobody like him. I mean, look what he did to Trevor Berbick. Listen, at 21, he's the youngest heavyweight champion, youngest man who ever became heavyweight champion, and the ease at how he hit Trevor Berbick with a left hook in the forehead like it was just a casual thing, like it was nothing, and he knocked him down 3 times with one punch. Right? The guy just kept getting up and he kept falling down, and nobody expected that. I'll tell you that everybody that saw the punch didn't think it was hard. They even George Foreman, whoever was there ringside, they didn't even think it was hard, but it was hard because it went right through, and it was done effortless and casual. And that guy could not get up. He got hit right in the temple or right here, and that was it for him. He was out of there, and you don't see that. You never see that happen. And Tyson was so unique in how he would knock people out and how hard he would hit and how sharp he could hit.
So, okay, I'm curious. Did you ever ended up getting more serious in boxing? Went down to the Kronk and you sparred some big names. And was that before you were dabbling with like going to JKD and Wing Chun schools and Silat schools and stuff, or what? Take us through the timeline a little bit.
Well, let's see. I was still involved in jiu-jitsu in my 20s, in my late 20s, and I was really big too. I was 255 pounds. I was really into weightlifting. So I got into weightlifting at around 21, and so for about 8 years there, I got pretty big. I got pretty strong, and so then I went to the Kronk gym and I was sparring heavyweights, and I sparred Michael Moore before he fought George Foreman. I fought Hearns' brother. I think his name is Johnny Hearns, one of the Hearns brothers.
You sparred Michael Moore and Tommy Hearns' brother?
Not Michael Moore, the guy, Michael Moore. Everybody is.
Now that's a pay-per-view I would buy. I'd throw good money to see that. Wouldn't last long, but I'd pay some good money.
Yeah. But Dan, it's like, as if you're going to do any of that, you got to take a good punch. If you're a sparring partner, you can't be a glass jaw sparring partner.
So, how was it getting in the ring with those guys?
When they hit you, you stayed hit. It's a whole different scale, than what you're used to. You got to get used to it.
Meaning it doesn't just leave out after a second, like, oh my God, I just got it. It stays with you.
It stays with you, yeah. Sometimes all day. You have a headache, right? But it was definitely something that got me used to. Like then later on when I got into Systema and then I was getting punched, I could easily handle getting punched. So we were standing there, because I got punched all my life and I was used to boxing.
So psychologically, not even physically yet, learning the Systema way of taking it, but psychologically, you're already okay with the fact that someone's hitting you.
See, that's what contact and real punches do, is they make it so it's not a big deal anymore. And then you can control yourself because you don't have that fear anymore.
Well, before we go on, so I until a week ago, I forgot. I didn't even know you had rolled with Hoist. You rolled at Hoist at some seminar. What was that experience like? And did you mention a difference between strength between what you felt from Hoist and what you felt from Helson?
Yeah, I did. There's like different styles there because Hoist was soft, relaxed, but he was strong too when he put on the lock. Except that if you do,
so he would flow until he got the lock, and then it was on.
Well, because I was big, so he would wear you out. He would take a big guy and wear him out, and then he would go for it. You get complacent, you get lost or exhausted, and then he'll turn on the strength. He's got strength too on the locks. If he puts a triangle
with those guys, when I was early on, when I would go with top guys, when I was just a blue belt or early purple belt, is like I could go with top black belts or name guys, and I'd be great for about 20, 25 minutes. And then it like you brain fart. You get tired, you're in the guard, whatever, and boom, they throw up a triangle. So mostly me, it's like water dehydration for my brain, I think. You're good until you make that brain fart.
Yeah, but you don't want to do that in the street because it takes too long. If you're on the street, and you have to play chess. I don't want to play chess in the street. People can come up behind me and kick over my chess pieces, and me too.
Yeah, so you don't necessarily want to rely on, I'm going to cook a guy for 25 minutes, 30 minutes, 90 minutes, like Hoist versus Sakuraba, the first fight, or which was Systema. So when did you first really get into Systema and become aware of Systema and start going up to train with Vladimir Vasiliev up in Toronto?
Well, immediately when I went and actually seen him, because that's what I'm going to say is you got to feel it, because you cannot look at this stuff on YouTube and believe it, or get excited about it, or have faith in it. You got to feel it, and that was something that I didn't either. I was just looking at videotapes. He had some videotapes out, and I didn't get too excited about that, but I was really interested in going and checking people out. And I decided I was going to go up to Toronto just to check him out as my last one. I'm not going to do it anymore. My girlfriend at the time was getting upset, and we weren't doing anything. Every time we went anywhere, it wasn't a vacation. It was always to check out some martial arts expert, right? So she was sick of that. She was getting tired of that. So it was putting a strain on her relationship doing all that. So I said, look, we'll go to Toronto and we'll spend the time there. No martial arts, nothing. But I am going to check out one man. That's it. And I promise that'll be it. And she goes, no, I know what happens to you. You always get sucked in there. And I go, no, he's not going to be good. Don't worry about it. He won't even be good. I'll just like everyone else. I'll just get tired of it and I'll leave. I just want to check this one guy out. That's it. And well, guess what happened? That last guy turned out to be the best guy. So I told her, I got swept. I couldn't, she recorded the thing. I was working out with Vladimir. He was throwing me around, and
this is when you were big too.
Yeah, I wasn't used to that. I was not used to that.
You were well over 200 pounds at that point. That's when you were pretty big still. Not the hugest you were, but you were probably 220 at least, right?
I'm 6'2". I was 6'2", 230 pounds, and I've been a martial artist all my life. I can hit really hard. I do all this stuff. I grapple, and I give everybody a hard time. Win or lose, nobody just dismisses me. So here, this guy's dismissing me, right? So it made me believe in magic all over again, like when I was 12.
What do you mean? So what happened? Can you describe? I mean, you were trying to he's throw punches at me, and he threw punches at him. What happened?
Well, when I went into the class, I wasn't real impressed with the students, though. The people that were there did not impress me. They were bumping me with their hips and doing extra things. And I thought, well, why do that? Just hit somebody. I was always just hit somebody. Don't mess around and play with them. And I kind of felt that they were doing a lot of unnecessary things. Okay. And it wasn't. Yeah. And so I was going to leave. I wasn't that interested until he called me over. George, come here. And then he just changed my whole world. It was like he was hitting with several different hands. Like he had extra hands. We did Chizao, something that was like Chizao, and then all of a sudden the punch would come out of nowhere, and I still thought I was holding his hands. So it was beyond just somebody who had power. It was tricky and sneaky and deceptive as anything you could imagine. It's like a magician,
Highly deceptive. It's like you're touching them, boom, you're getting hit with shots underneath you don't even see, right?
That's right. That's right. It was unbelievable to me what was happening at that stage of my life and experience. I mean, I thought I experienced everybody. I was at the Kronk boxing gym. I wrestled with Hoist Gracie and Helson Gracie. I met Dan Osano. I did all that stuff, and this guy here is making them look like rank amateurs.
Can you speak to even if people don't want to believe the punching power and taking punches thing, which is huge from Systema, can you speak to Vladimir's precision, which precision means you have to have timing and distance control to be able to pick stuff up, just like that, which you also have. And I'm like, if you only look at one attribute, just precision or timing and distance, just timing, it's like off the charts, right?
Yeah, it's really good reading, because he could read you really well, like as soon as you think that you're going to do something, he's onto you, and it makes you paranoid because you already know he knows what you're going to do next.
So it's almost not even just perceiving you're starting to move, telegraphing, but almost even before that. And Samurai have 4 phases of in Miyamoto Musashi talked about 4 different phases of an attack, and you can wait till someone's attacking, just as they start to attack, or just as they think to attack.
That's right.
So it's almost like they're picking it up just as you think to attack, right?
Well, can you grapple your reflection in the mirror? Can you grapple your reflection in the mirror?
No,
I don't care what
it's at the same time. I don't have reaction speed or OODA loops like a second and a half behind lag.
No matter how good you are, you can't grapple your reflection in the mirror. You can't grapple your image, right? So if someone were to be able to move like that, they would be just like that reflection. What it means is there'd be no difference. Total harmony, perfect harmony, and no difference. Because you can only win if you can create a difference on somebody else. So it doesn't matter what anybody knows or what style it is. If you create a difference, if they're behind and they don't perceive what's happening, they're going to lose because they can't perceive what's happening. It doesn't matter what style it is. What good are you if you can't perceive?
Yeah, so we're talking perception, and we're talking like time perception. If you have to slip and react, and let's say an untrained person's a second and a half, and a trained boxer's a second to parry and punch back. But if you can speed up the processing speed like a CPU,
like a CPU,
to get it where it's almost instantaneous.
Yes.
Way before these other. I mean, you already felt trained martial artists that can you got good vision and can pick stuff up pretty fast. You've already felt that. And this was, instead of a second and a half, this is like a half a second or even less. Or just as the guy was starting to think, which I can occasionally, when I'm really tired, I occasionally do that too, where I went before the guy even realized he was thinking to start shifting his weight that way, and I sweep him to the ground.
Right. And not only that, but like a mirror moves the same speed you are, right?
So that's almost like a blending thing. How do you do it? Because you do the same thing. How do you do that? How do you move the same way, George?
Well, if I'm relaxed, I'm more sensitive. And some people say, well, to relax so you can perceive something like that, you got to breathe and you got to do all these things, But, I believe that it's better to be psychologically prepared, because the breathing will just happen and the relaxation will happen by being psychologically relaxed, and sensitive, and knowing your body, knowing what's going on in your body. You know how when you have anxiety, sometimes it builds up to the point where you can't deal with it. Well, it's like recognizing those things that come in, those anxieties and those fears, recognizing at the smallest level when they come into your body and being able to be sensitive to those and relax them away. And you develop a sensitivity that way to where you can pick up on other people. It's kind of like you quiet yourself down, I once said that if you throw a pebble in raging waters, you can't hear it, right? You can't hear the pebble in raging waters. But if it's a pond and you throw a pebble, it's a still pond. You can notice all the ripples that were there. They were all there, but in that noisy water, you couldn't detect them, right?
Yeah.
So it's you have to get rid of all that noise in you so that you could respond to your opponent.
And maybe eliminating that noise and that stress and being relaxed is even in MMA why you see a guy like Anderson Silva when he was younger in his prime is like a leap above on a different level than every other steroided up big haymaker guy who, if Anderson flinched, or any modern guy, or Conor McGregor, whoever, that if you're scared of getting hit, if you're psychologically have fear and tension, you're going to flinch just from them doing a fake or a feint. You're going to,
sure.
You've already lost in essence. You could be in shape and be juiced and do your cardio and all that.
Yep.
But there is a very different level between the guys that become champions and guys that are number 5 through 10.
Yeah. And
there's a big difference in boxing, right. MMA, whatever, martial arts in general, fighting, whatever. So that starts from psychologically, and that starts from being used to sparring and taking hits and not being scared of another man. And if you're scared of another man and someone cocks their arm back, if someone telegraphing their big, oh my God, their big scary punch as I cock my elbow back, whereas the person not scared will be like, think, you just telegraphed, I just go, as Bruce Lee said, it just hits on its own.
Right. You're not, but if you're afraid, you can't do nothing about it, and you can't perceive. Fear is the killer, because if you're afraid of anything, you don't have that's all you feel is the fear.
And you think, and now your reaction time's like 2 seconds instead of being like the mirror is close to exactly, or even synergy, or even Aikido, flowing with the guy, being sensitive. that you want to be, that this is your goal.
Well, what is fear? Fear is tension, right? Fear is tension, or at least it turns into tension. So now think about this. If you close your fist and you squeeze it really hard and you over squeeze it, you don't have sensitivity. You lose sensation in your hand because you can't no longer feel the weight of your hand. If you relax your hand, you can feel the weight. You could go like this and feel its weight. When you close it like this, you don't feel it. The whole thing tenses all the way up to the shoulder.
And when guys are like this, I have to unloosen to then contract again. If I'm always contracted, I would have to tell my brain has to tell a nervous system to release to then do whatever. So, if you would, what is Systema? What did you get from it? I want to hear about if you ever trained with Robko or felt his punch.
Yeah.
If you saw Robko and Vasiliev going at it. And when I tell people, they should know I've trained with top martial artists, jiu-jitsu instructors, the best MMA fighters around the world. When I say no one's like George and George's precision, George's movement, George's power, I mean it. And then if you want to talk about what you feel from Vladimir and Mikhail Robko, like, hopefully that lends some credence. Like, I have sparred all these top guys in different styles and different instructors, just like you did, all these instructors in different styles. We have felt it all pretty much. Yes. So what is Systema? What has it done for you? So if you started in 96 and you're 10 years older than me, you were already experienced martial artist, boxing. I think you had already boxed those guys down at the Kronk gym, top professional boxers.
Yep.
And then you feel Vladimir, and it's like something different. Can you kind of discuss all that, please?
Yeah, that was a transition. I was really into jiu-jitsu too at the time when I went to see Vladimir. And the one thing I remember, we were at a seminar, and Hoist Gracie had all these different schools participate from all over the place, and we had these grappling contests. We'd be matched up with different people, and I just remember that everybody knew the moves, and it was just it came down to an endurance contest. And there was no surprises anymore. It was interesting before, it was more exciting because people didn't know it, and you could tap them out, and they'd do a dumb thing and flip over, and you would choke them. But it wasn't happening anymore. It was with the guys that were really good. Then it became like an endurance thing. So I started getting bored with that because, like, okay, how hard do I want to work? Do I want to start training endurance and running and all that stuff again? So that's when I started looking around, and I saw Vladimir, and I went there. And what it really is, and I remember talking to a guy in the parking lot that was waiting for the school to open, that it almost seemed to me what he was saying, and I believe it now, that it wasn't a style. Systema wasn't a style. There were scientific concepts. There were concepts of relaxing. It wasn't like there might be like a few different moves, the way they do things. Like in Aikido, there's a lot of grabbing. Well, Systema doesn't grab because you waste time closing your fingers or grabbing. And you can't flow with somebody as easy if you're grabbing because you're tensing up. Every time you squeeze your hands together, you're tensing up. So in a lot of ways, in some ways, it is a style. But for the most of the part, most of that, it can enhance whatever you're doing. Whatever you apply it to, it'll enhance. And it's also even therapeutic. For people who are stressful, anxious, older person.
So it's not it's a system, it's you're the system.
You're the system, yeah. And because you're exploring how your mind works, how we are naturally. And one thing that I could, like I said, I was telling people, I'll give you an example how Systema is. If you were outside and you turned around and you saw something fly towards your face, like a bee or a bird or something like that, what happens is you lean back. That's the thing that happens. The first thing that happens is you lean back because your brain, your motor functions, does a scan throughout your body looking for the part of least resistance in the body. So in that case, it's your hips. You don't have tension in your hips, so the body chooses that to lean back. That's why your hands don't come up. But because they're tense. Your shoulders are tense, your arms are tense. So the only thing that's not tense is your hips. So you sway back away from something that catches you by surprise, comes at your face. But then if you overbend, you become tense again because you broke structure. So now you got more tension in your hips than you do your arms. So guess what happens? Your arms come up next. So when your hips go too far, when you lean too far, and tension builds up, then your arms have less tension, and now that's the next thing that moves. So if that's how we're wired, if that's how it's going to be, then
you're not going to be able to do some kind of a strange martial art thing because you want to. You could drill that all you want, but we all have the same reaction when something flies in our face. You know, you don't do a kung fu kata and hit the bee or bird out of the air. You just lean back because it went right at your face, no matter how good you are. So that's how we're wired. That's Mother Nature. You can't change that. So if you're going to develop a move,
So why are we learning a system of horse stance and this big tension karate block when I could have just went and the punch misses without leaning back too much to get out of structure? Because everything I've been telling people lately, why can I do these Aikido locks, and certain other people I trained 15 years could never ever do it for real because of base or balance. I have base, I have structure in my spine. Structure gives you a delivery system for punching power, by the way, and sensitivity. The big wide sensitivity we talked about earlier, whether that's seeing the punch and reading what the guy's doing very early on, or the sensitivity I have as a grappler that other people, even really good jiu-jitsu people, don't have to the high level that I do for whatever reason. Probably because I was open-minded to things like Tai Chi and Aikido and Systema and just being open-minded, even if I didn't train them that much. Just because I'm open-minded, I like, attributes. So you agree with me, base, spinal structure, and sensitivity are kind of the pillars to judge a martial artist on. Doesn't matter what the style is.
Right, because the correct structure gives you relaxation. Because your muscles are if you're off structure and you're off balance, then your muscles have to be engaged to overcompensate.
And that's tiring. That's slow because you have to release to go do instead of just do.
Right. So structure and posture is very important so you can unhinge those tense muscles.
Before we leave this, I want to get a little bit more from you on Vladimir and Robko, if you could.
If I was afraid of the punch, I would move too much.
Yeah, overreact too far outside to even counter.
Right. So it's very important that you're not afraid to punch so that you can let it just go by you, so that it doesn't matter to you if it lands or not. Because then you'll have control of it. You'll have sensitivity, and you'll be able to see things that you didn't see because you're not upset. You're not fearful. When you're fearful, you're going to blind yourself. You'll distract yourself. When you're concerned with
Let's go a little fade at some of the Systema students then. If they've never sparred, they've never gotten hit in the face in their life, but they just focus on only breathing and movements, and they only focus on movements. Do you think when a guy my size gets in their face and starts throwing real punches at them, like a boxer or MMA fighter, even if it's tense, do you think psychologically they're going to stay relaxed, or do you think they'll crush because they actually still have fear of punches that they never got over in the first place?
No, there's pain involved. This is a hurt business. You know, in martial arts, it's a hurt business. You got to deal with the pain, and you can't run away from it. And those who do that neglect that part of training and dealing with the pain and dealing with the exhaustion. And, they're not going to, they're fooling themselves. They'll never be able to fight with it. If all you do
What do you think of Robko? Should everyone make fun of him just because he's a chubbier, older guy? Or what have you seen in person? Have you felt his punch in person?
Oh, yeah.
And did you see him ever going against Vladimir?
Yeah, I did.
Talk about that, please.
Yeah, when I thought Vladimir, when I first met him, was like a product of the government, the Russian government. Just in the military. And was really good because he learned from lots of people. I didn't know that he had like a single teacher. And when he showed me who that teacher was, I couldn't believe it. I thought he was kidding. Because as good as he was, I couldn't believe this fat guy could be his teacher, right? And when he said he was going to bring him here for a seminar, I was trying to envision this, some guy, because all my life, Bruce Lee, ripped abs, Tyson, everybody that I've ever seen was in really good shape, and now there's this fat guy who could beat them all up.
Yeah, it's all look. It has to be look. That's what makes the guy strong is steroids and lifting weights.
And everybody thinks that, when we're following this guy or we're listening, that we must be terrible martial artists and have no degree of common sense following that guy, right? I know how ridiculous it looks and what people think. They think
we're all crazy.
Yeah, they think we're all stupid, that we never fought before, we never did anything, that we're just so naive that we could be fooled by this big fat guy. And he's only 5'5", I think. He's not really that tall of a guy. But I remember when I went up against him, I couldn't see anything he did. And his punches were so deep that they went all to your spine, and you worried if you were going to hemorrhage. I mean, you felt like that, internal hemorrhaging. You felt, life and death when he would just play. He would just put his fist in your gut, and he's just making contact before he accelerates. When he accelerates, it goes into your spine, and all you're worrying about is your health. You don't care. You don't.
So even without winding up, if he just puts his hand there and you're moving into him to attack or whatever, and he just goes from contact on your t-shirt to just like a piston, just like a robot, boom, like Terminator. You'll feel so much pressure, like it's a Mack truck hitting you.
Yeah, but there's this psychological thing of unexpected too. You know how, like, if you're walking and you're talking to your friend and you walk into a pole, the end of a pole, like it was a steel pole and it doesn't move. That's what it feels like, where you just cracked your body open, or you're wondering if you're going to have to go to the hospital now because you felt it go out of your spine. You didn't see that pole while you were walking, and you weren't even walking that fast. But because it doesn't move, and because you're walking at it and you're not paying attention, boom, and that's how he feels. Like you're not paying attention. Plus, you got the impact that's going so deep because you can't predict it. You can't tell when he's going to do it or not. It's like throwing a brick up in the air and not knowing when it's going to come down. It disappears. It's at nighttime. If you're at night or something, you throw a brick up in the air.
So you also say he has like an immovable center. It doesn't matter if he's heavy. Like you have to reach him to attack him. I mean, he doesn't need to be a young athlete in shape chasing you around a room or an octagon. If you go to attack him, he's got a strong center. He puts his fist there, and boom, you're dead.
That's right.
Like it almost. Look, there's a lot of bullshito guys out there. Okay, and there's a lot of like karate instructors out there that are fat, and people call me fat online, and I get a belly. But it's almost like the better you are, the more it doesn't matter if you have cardio, if you're ripped, you could be chubby. Like the better you are, almost is like you're so good at that stuff doesn't matter. Really get into it. Anything else you want to say about Rabko? And can you say something about him? Is he legit? And did you see him working with Vladimir? Just one minute before we move on.
Yes, like I definitely saw him working with Vladimir, and Michael Rebko is so soft, so in tune, and so relaxed. That as quick as and as impressive as Vladimir is, he can't detect his punches. So it's the sparring session that I saw was, Vladimir was student to teacher, man. Everybody has a teacher, and Rebko can handle him just like anybody else.
Did you ever get a sense from them, or did they say, how did Vladimir become a student of, I think, a colonel in the military? I mean, he's high up. Do you think it's when he got assigned to a Spetsnaz unit? Do you think Vladimir was in Spetsnaz?
Yeah, yeah, he was, and I think that Systema was kind of an experiment. They didn't waste it on anybody, just anybody. They would train people with Systema for those that they thought were gifted, gifted athletes, or if they're good Sambo guys, and they're proven. If they're proven, and I think Vladimir was like the second champion of karate in Russia or something. That's his background. So he excelled in an area of combat, and I think that's why he met Rebko and he started teaching him.
So he already excelled at movements and kicking and flexibility and precision to an extent.
Yeah.
And then maybe he gets assigned, he's already in the military, he gets assigned, I mean, I'm guessing, gets assigned to a Spetsnaz unit, and they're going to give them someone like a colonel that was the son of Stalin's bodyguard, that was trained since he was young, a very high-level guy to teach him high-level stuff, as opposed to wasting that on the general military that's going to get military Sambo training.
Right.
And in fact, people don't realize, and it was my theory a long time, and then I've seen it now on a website of the Kato Chinkov style. Okay, under Kato, my theory was that Systema is really one of the three pillars of Sambo. And at least I found one website that seems to be saying this under Spridanov. Spridanov, one of the three founders of Sambo, and I think I got this right. He had an injured arm from World War I. And my theory is, instead of the more judo type, Wolochenkov, I got the name wrong. training in Japan, and they got the judo and jiu-jitsu from Japan. That really kind of was more towards the sambo, and got shot in the head for claiming the Japanese too much when Russia wanted to say, no, Russia, Russia, Russia. Smirnoff had, probably because of his injured arm, is my guess, probably is what really was one of the three pillars of Sambo, but became Systema because he had to be more efficient. And I think they taught that. I think Systema goes back to the KGB and a Spetsnaz, and you didn't waste it on the regular military, but this was more to be hidden and deceptive. And if you want to assassinate somebody, you don't want to like come at them with tension and be visible to everybody. You want to be able to kill them in a room full of people and no one saw a thing.
Yeah, and also, when a soldier crossed enemy lines and he encountered dehydration, starvation, and disease, he still had to survive against the enemy. Even against the odds. So
even against Germany in winter, which is a comment I made, and no one picked up on that.
So you can't just do that by being in shape. You got to be mentally in shape. You got to be psychologically in shape. To be able to deal with those kinds of conditions. So you can just imagine how difficult the training really was to prepare for something like that. It's not like it is now over here,
Yeah, and even Spetsnaz now maybe isn't what they were going through before, during the Cold War.
Right.
They were probably going through some crazy stuff. We know our military spent millions or if not billions of dollars researching out their stuff, anything to get an advantage. And these guys probably went through starvation, sleep deprivation. I said something the other day, which probably is true, going under barbed wire with RPKs, firing live rounds, not blank rounds over their heads, probably blood and guts. Maybe even, do you think maybe even like killing people on death row kind of thing? Like they were, some of these were trained assassins or the trained operators of, a unit, and they probably wanted to desensitize them to violence and some pretty crazy things.
Oh yeah, they would. It'd break out of one of the tests to be a Spetsnaz was to break out of a prison, and fight everybody on the way out. And then in some rooms, some of these people that were on death row were given the knife, and they were told that they'd be released and freed if they could stop or kill the Spetsnaz. And
do you think that's true? Do you have any reason to think that, or is that just conjecture on our parts? Did you ever get hinted to that way or saw anything that made you think that?
Something like that doesn't surprise me. It's that's kind of how they think. That's their mentality, and they really think out of the box. And to think that and you're expendable. So let's say the death row inmate kills you. Well, I guess who cares? You didn't pass.
You weren't good enough then. So yeah, people should realize that when you're talking about geopolitics. When you have a whole lot of people like Russia or China do, the things they're willing to do, and people are expendable. We should probably leave it at that. But that's just something I think people should think about when you're talking about countries like that, especially Soviet Union, USSR back in the day, and crazy things. Which leads us to our next topic. And Kato was what, head of? Do you want to speak about Kato 1 second before we go on? I mean, he was head of what? He's a
rocket scientist. He was a professor at the Krasnodar University, and I guess his father won 4 times the greatest award that you could ever win in Russia for heroic duties in the military, and he won it 4 times. So now in Katashnikov and
yeah. So Kato, if a rocket scientist, head of whatever programs, space, intercontinental ballistic missiles in the USSR during the Cold War, do you think someone like him would be spending time, something like Systema? And I've seen videos you had of 1,000 people coming to attention and watch him do a demonstration. Do you think during the Cold War, USSR would have spent time and a guy like that, out there, high-level scientist, rocket scientist, master of geometry and physics, would be spending time in Systema if it was all BS and we shouldn't be studying things like martial arts as physics and leverage and geometry?
Well, to think that the Russian military are a bunch of clowns, how people act, like what you think they're a bunch of clowns. they're definitely dangerous. Their military is dangerous. They don't play games, with their martial arts or what they use. To laugh at these guys, that it's like Kadashinkov. I don't even have the words to describe the stupidity when people look at somebody like that and think that that, I mean, the guy is a rocket scientist. So just like you say, of course he's gonna know more than we do.